And hello again from WJ Live, powered by the Western Journal. Happy Friday afternoon. I don't know about you guys, but I am very glad it's Friday afternoon.
Yes, me too.
We have been short on staff this week and had an incredibly busy week too, which I'm sure you have as well. Thank you for wrapping up your weekend, for wrapping up your week with us on WJ Live. On the show today, you know them, the lovely and gracious Tara Snyder. Sadly, for the last time, the lovely and gracious Tara Snyder. This is her last day. Weep while you can. And, of course, Grant Atkinson, who is here for the foreseeable future.
Sorry
and,
about that.
yeah, you know, we tried to get him to swap, but
Yeah.
he's staying, she's leaving. We can't do anything about it. Again, thank you for joining us. We've got kind of a potpourri today of things we're talking about. The first thing that we wanted to take is it's helping dominate the news of the day. It's germane to what we've been talking about, and I think it's absolutely hilarious. As I walked into the newsroom this morning, Tara was already here, and she said, did you see what's going on with Jussie Smollett, or as the great Dave Chappelle says, Juicy Smollett? So I walked in. She said, "There's video you've got to see."
Yeah, so
take it away, Tara.
He was having an utter meltdown, and of course, we all know that Juicy Smollett is most well known for his antics, buying a Subway sandwich at 2 a.m., which is already immediately questionable, and then being hunted
in a
down.
blizzard.
Yes, in a blizzard at like 2 a.m. in Chicago, and was hunted down by two Trump supporter, MAGA hat wearing fools who actually happen to be Nigerian brothers.
Yeah, all those black Trump supporters.
Yeah.
The black Nigerian Trump supporters who just walk around with a rope at 2 a.m. in a blizzard.
You're already risking it anywhere in America wearing a Trump hat, pretty much. So to be in Chicago at 2 a.m. wearing it, just kind of sets off the alarm bells in your head. Well, anyways, it all came to light that Jussie kind of played out this whole thing and orchestrated this LGBT anti-black hate crime. And the media was in a frenzy. And of course, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris hop on immediately. And Kamala Harris even said, like, Jussie is one of the best people I've ever met, and this was a modern-day lynching. And then it turns out that Jussie Smollett is going to be sentenced to be with his attacker, a.k.a. himself. And so... Well,
I'd not thought of it like that. That's good.
So, hey, I'm a little bit...
He's going to beat the mess out of himself in prison.
And so it's just kind of a funny turn of events because, of course, to his dying breath today in the courtroom as a free man, he was arguing that he was free as well as his lawyers. And while he was being sentenced, to about 5 months in jail, has to pay a bunch of fines. And then even when he's on parole, he's still getting special treatment. And the judge is allowing him to travel to New York and LA to allow him to be this little star that he once was before he ruined his career. But the main point is that he went on this horrific tirade, and it was pretty much the most embarrassing thing I've ever seen. So if we want to pull that clip up, we can.
I am not suicidal.
Stop laughing about black.
I am not suicidal, and I am innocent. I could have said that I was guilty a long time.
Yeah.
I am not suicidal.
Yeah, I am not suicidal. And there was a little bit even before that where he was like, "Judge, I respect you and I respect the jury. However, I am innocent. I am innocent." And it kind of goes off on this, and he goes, "By the way, I'm not suicidal."
Over and over again. He
over
repeats
again.
it.
Suicidal probably 6 times
Yeah,
at least.
yeah, and so it's just kind of funny because then I made this joke that he's probably worried about getting the Epstein special.
I think he is.
Yeah,
I think he is.
because Ghislaine Maxwell has openly said, "I'm terrified for my life. Like, I need high security, whatever." And so it's like people. I mean, if I had to choose a jail to go, it's definitely not the jails of Chicago.
The Cook County Jail for 5 months.
5 months.
I would
Yeah.
rather go to prison for years than the Cook County Jail for 5. It's a county jail. I presume it's Cook County Jail.
So yeah, it was just a nightmare, and you'd think that you'd probably want to be a little bit more respectful and go out. I mean, what do you think, Grant?
Well, honestly, to me, I feel like he clearly embarrassed himself. I mean, if he thinks that he's going to make any friends, if he's going to, win people over
Friends
with
in
this
jail.
sort of behavior, he's just not. He looks ridiculous. But as far as the Epstein thing, honestly, if I were him, I'd be more concerned about the people in the prison. I don't think there's going to be some, elite who's going to come attack him or
Yeah.
something like that. But if I was in that prison and Mr. Juicy walks in there and he starts talking about what he did, and if anybody knows anything about him, I mean, what he
Yeah.
basically did is he took the complaints and the fears of Black Americans, which we can sit here and argue
Yeah.
whether or not they're legitimate, whether or not there's a systemic racism in America, which I don't think there is, but there is.
But the fear
racism.
exists,
Yes.
and the fear exists. The
It
fear's
is there.
real, regardless of whether or not
So
it's
he
founded.
took that and tried to make himself more famous by making up a hate crime, basically victimizing
Yeah.
all of these
Yeah.
people that he's supposed to represent and minimizing whatever experiences they've gone through, because
Yeah.
he says, oh, it amounts to me to just this fake orchestrated attack so I can make myself look better. And now he's going to go face, I mean, I would presume there are probably a good amount of minorities in the county prison in Chicago, and now he's going to go have to face them. And if I were them, I would be angry at him because he has taken advantage of them and their fears to try to make himself look good, and now he looks ridiculous.
Yeah.
Imagine if you were in jail and you're a minority, you were in jail and you had been attacked by bigots before, and now this kid acted like he was attacked by bigots and wasn't, and he's in jail
Yeah.
with you too. I would be seriously ticked off at him because people would be less likely to believe me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not.
I would want a piece of
I'm not
his
sure
flesh.
what the true like laws are behind going to prison and jail, but just imagine if like they're like, "What are you in for?" and he goes, "A hate crime that I faked," and then they're like, the guy next to him's like, "Double homicide." Like it's just gonna look so ridiculous. I mean, if I were him, I would try and make up something that sounds a
Yeah.
little bit more like "Don't mess with me" than something so stupid as faking your own hate crime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I cut somebody's brain out and then ate it. Okay, they'll leave you alone if you tell them that.
Yeah.
They will absolutely leave you alone. But if it's
Yeah.
fake hate.
And yeah, it's just sad too, because I was thinking about this because obviously you go through school and you learn about the major events of U.S. history, and one of the things that always stuck with me in high school that we learned about was Emmett Till. And I think that I just was thinking about Kamala Harris's tweet where she said this was like a modern day attempted lynching and something like that. And it's like I was thinking back and I just like can't imagine what Emmett Till's family would say to like try
Yeah,
and draw
yeah.
this similar comparison of two guys in Chicago when Emmett Till was literally brutalized. Like it's just like such a sad thing that we're trying to pull things that were like absolutely horrific and literally hell on earth for people, and then try and draw the same narratives today. And I just thought it was so sad and just absolutely horrible.
Yeah, honestly, to me, it's frustrating when people do things like this. Obviously, it's not usually to this extent. I mean, somebody faking a hate crime against themselves, that's pretty
And
out there.
getting international
Yeah.
Yeah.
attention.
I mean, that's
and
pretty crazy.
Involving the president of the United States.
But as
Yeah.
far as comparing things that are not nearly as bad as past racism or past slavery or whatever it may be to things that happen today, that it bothers me so much because as a Republican, we call those things out. We say, this is not like that. This is not anything like that. You're being ridiculous by comparing that. And then we are called the racists because we refuse to recognize how serious it is, refuse to recognize that, Jussie Smollett got attacked and we have doubts about it, so we're the racists. Turns out he was lying all along. But this idea of, we are the bad ones for pointing out the fact that they're comparing things that are not comparable at all, and they're minimizing the suffering of black people in America from a long time ago, and they're comparing it today, which is not the same.
Yeah.
And then they're the ones who are making it. I mean, they're being racist by minimizing what these other people went through and trying to compare it to today's life, which is not the same.
Well, and I think if I'm correct, the Bubba Wallace incident happened like almost immediately after that. And if I remember correctly, he came out and said that there was a noose found hanging in his NASCAR garage, and everyone freaked out because at this point, the Jussie Smollett thing had happened, and people were like, "Oh my gosh, there's a reckoning of like racists coming out of the
It's
woods."
everywhere. We
which
were
they
right.
Which apparently didn't happen when
supremacists
Obama ran in
everywhere.
2008. But then when people were like, oh, there's this reckoning
I have
happening.
a story about that. Keep going.
And so it's just sad because the FBI goes and investigate it, and it's found to be not true again. And it's still getting circulated on Twitter. I've seen things where people get in, these debates about systemic racism and things like that, and people are still posting the Bubba Wallace lie.
Yeah.
And it's just disheartening because it shows you what irresponsible media does is like people don't look at the actual context of stories anymore. They read the headline, they don't follow it, and then they use it as like a bargaining chip to like prove a point that clearly doesn't exist.
I'm sorry, but the Bubba Wallace story is so funny to me. It was a garage poll, and he made up a story about how it was a noose, and then everyone believed him. It's insane. It's crazy.
They want to believe to show that they're sensitive and to show that they're not racist. So I will. It doesn't look like a noose. It doesn't seem likely that it's a noose, but I'll agree that it's a noose because that will buy me an insurance policy where no one will be able to say I'm racist after that. It's not even an insurance policy. You're just buying yourself a guarantee that people won't call you racist if you go along with unreality that that the neo-racists like. The bubble wall, I was thinking about that earlier today, was ridiculous. There was a... But that is not the silliest one of these. Back during the Obama administration, if I remember correctly, there was a girl who was brought up on charges in her dorm for having.
Wait, what? I feel like I remember.
Gosh,
this.
it was
Jog something.
I wish I had my computer in front of me, but I think she had like a stuffed monkey in her dorm room window, and somebody reported that as a hate crime. When in fact it was nothing but just a stuffed monkey that was her. She'd had it for years or something. There was also a case, I think, where I kid you not, where a banana peel was found in a tree. And the thinking was that was somehow racially motivated. And so the insane oversensitivity to these things is remarkable. But that is how the left has wanted us to be. They've wanted to get us on a hair trigger where everything is viewed through the lens of race. Absolutely everything, including garage door pulls. I mean, that's how stupid this is. Garage door pulls are now viewed as racist. It's an absolutely bizarre thing. The founding documents of the country, the Declaration of Independence, acknowledges we're all created equal, and the Constitution is the best shot we could take at the time that supported that idea, and it wasn't perfect, but it was the best we could do at the time. And the idea that slavery is somehow ensconced in those documents is ridiculous. But old Juicy Smollett, I mean, I really think he was thinking somebody's going to knock him off, and it's going to be chalked up to suicide.
Yeah.
And I'm not positive why he would think anyone would knock him off.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not especially knock-offable.
Yeah, I think he thinks that he's more important than he actually is.
Exactly. No one knew who this guy was, by the way.
I saw some like kind of dark tweets about that on Twitter that I won't repeat because they're just kind of a little bit whatever. But people were just being like, "Oh, he's getting ready for his next like faked crime." You know? It's just,
that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's just setting the stage.
Yeah.
He's just setting
so
the stage.
it's just
fakes
like
his
it's
own
like
suicide.
it's really dark.
Yes.
It's really dark, but it's just like it was like oh.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So you got the Nigerians thrown in the cell, like right next to
Yeah.
him, and
It's all orchestrated.
it's all rigged. So yes, all right. So that's good. Justice for Juicy Smollett. Some might argue a little too much justice. Being stuck in a county jail up there for 5 months that's no cup of tea. He will. Presumably, he really will pay the price for that. And people should pay the price for this. I mean, he not only... There's no telling how many racially motivated incidents took place after this because of this. Either black people ticked off thinking that white Trump supporters had gone after him, or idiot white people angry at black people over this. I mean, there's no telling how much hate this stupid lie from him catalyzed, and he does need to pay the price for it. So that is Juicy Smollett and Epstein. He's trying to keep from getting himself Epsteined. So let's shift gears. It's like no episode of WJ Live would be complete right now without some talk about Ukraine and what's happening there. And Putin continues to dig in and does not appear to be willing. I think pretty much every day this week, people have thought, oh, well, maybe this will be the day when he'll start kind of rolling back and thinking, oh, gosh, this isn't worth it, and maybe we'll have peace. And he's showing no signs of doing that as far as I can tell right now. But something very interesting happened earlier today. Facebook and Instagram announced that they were going to be banning Russia from their platforms. Now, best I understand it, that doesn't mean all Russians, but that does mean Russia, state-run media. I would presume state actors as well. And so that's an interesting idea. So now you have these platforms openly picking a side in a war. And while I agree that aggressive conduct from Russia is not a good thing, I'm not positive that the world communication system needs to simply isolate the Russians. That's one thing. And they've been doing that to Christians and conservatives for a while. They'll ban us, they'll shadow ban us, they'll outright ban us. But another thing happened today as well. Facebook and Insta came out and said that they were going to allow potentially violence-inducing comments on the platforms as they relate to Russia. So, the same time they ban Russia, they then say, all right, if you guys want to pile on and say, down with the Russians, kill Russians, Russian soldiers need to be blown into bits, you can totally do that. That seems like an unbelievably bad precedent to me. Am I mistaken?
No, it's such a. I always say, oh, I'm shocked by this. I can't believe this happened. But now I'm kind of at a point where nothing can surprise me because I've seen so many stupid decisions in the last couple years just by the left and the leftist media, leftist tech.
Socials,
Yeah.
social media.
I'm actually torn on this issue because
All right, good, interesting.
I think obviously a threat that is directly against someone or somebody posting on social media, I'm gonna go hurt this person. That shouldn't be allowed, obviously. As far as saying like death to the Russian soldiers who invaded Ukraine, I don't know that I'm inherently against that. But what I am against is that Facebook and Instagram or whatever, all the companies, Twitter too, have all said that language like that is not allowed. And they've banned it in America. So why is it now that it can be? My issue is less that it's allowed, that they're allowing people to say death to these Russian invaders because these Russians invaded their country, and if they need to defend themselves by killing them, I mean that is unfortunate, but that's what happens.
That's life.
But I think it's the fact that they're going back on what they said before that really bothers me more than anything.
Well, yeah, I think you just need to. I think you need to be consistent. If you're saying you can't have violent speech or hate speech, then you can't have violent speech or hate speech. So that's, I think, the biggest issue for me. But the other thing is that I've kind of thought about is I think that a lot of people in Russia have been mostly brainwashed or are under this influence where they have to act in a certain way because of Vladimir Putin and just how the country of Russia is run, and a lot of people know that. So I do think that it's kind of inappropriate to aim like maybe that hatred at soldiers, and not all of them are innocent, but I don't think that we can actually like decipher which ones are innocent and don't understand what's going on versus the ones that do. But I do think it's a lot different than being like Russia's like leadership system. They need to have severe consequences.
Yeah, I think it's tough to blame some of the soldiers because it's like, what do you do? I mean, what are they going to do? Refuse to follow the orders to go into
Doesn't
Ukraine?
work out well in Russia, man. They will shoot you if you retreat.
Yeah, I don't think that that's going to go very well. So it is a tough situation they've been put in.
It is. I think I agree with Tara on the hypocrisy angle here. And some of this is sort of kind of liberal pearl clutching or hand-wringing. Calls for violence are, I mean, it's sad, but they're just kind of a fact of life. And they're also a fact of geopolitics. Turns out people go to war with each other. It just happens. And the response to that is, well, I want world peace, and we should have world peace. And that would be great.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
Please suggest to me a system that will allow that. The best two shots we've had at it were the League of Nations, which we never joined, and then it was our idea. We never joined it, and now it's defunct. And the UN, which is clearly completely impotent in the face of this. So
Yeah, it's going great right now, clearly. That
yeah,
was a
yeah.
great
So
plan.
what other alternatives are there? There are no other suitable alternatives now. That means there will be violence in international affairs. And so we need to recognize that. And that's not straight up evil either. It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. Ethnic cleansing, generally that's pretty evil. But wars themselves are not necessarily evil. Sometimes they do, sadly, they do just happen. Clausewitz said they're extensions of politics by other means. And that happens. But what bothers me is the idea that now, at least in my mind, Facebook and Insta bans are now linked to Facebook and Insta allowing calls for violence against the thing that's banned. And as someone who works in an industry where we have been throttled or banned or suspended or any number of other things, and as someone who lives in a time when anything the establishment disagrees with is called terrorism or Nazism or white supremacy, I can totally see them using this kind of principle on conservatives and Christians at some point. Am I way off on that?
No, I don't think you're way off. I think I don't know. I don't know that I'm that scared of somebody saying, oh, I want to go hurt Grant Atkinson because he is a conservative. Like, if people want to say that, okay. I mean, I would rather people not say that, but I'm less I'm less scared. Like I'm not that concerned about if somebody wants to post that on Twitter or Instagram or Facebook or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, the idea that you can gin up a mob is a scary
That part,
thing.
That part is the
it
concerning
a scary
part for
thing.
sure.
But it's just fascinating to me that big tech is taking a side. The entire world seems to be taking a side, except for China. The China and the Russians seem to be together on this, and we've never had this before. We've never had instantaneous communication. We've never been able to see how horrible war is right up front, right as it's happening. What we always saw was the aftermath. We found the camps. We went through China and saw what the Japanese had done there. We've never seen it in your face the way it is right now, and that's a very harrowing, different thing. And people are trying to figure out how to deal with it, including big tech.
Yeah, I also think that you brought up a good point, which is that social media, big tech shouldn't be choosing which side that they're going to allow to hear. Now, I'm not saying I like Russia or that I think that they should be able to spread disinformation or whatever,
No.
but the precedent of social media saying, okay, this side, you're allowed to say death to the Russians and we don't like them. But Russians, you're not allowed to say death to the Ukrainians and we don't like them. I mean, like, seems fine now because everyone seems to be on Ukraine's side, but who's to say that big tech isn't going to use that same kind of logic, against conservatives?
Well,
or
that's
against some
my
sort of other
point.
group?
That's
Yes.
completely my point. And if Facebook would say, or Meta, if they would just say, okay, well, you know what? We're an American company, darn it. And, you come after the United States, or if the United States declares war against you, we'll shut you down. Okay, fine. That's consistency. But they're being kind of a global mega corporation and then just kind of picking the countries that they will shut down and won't shut down.
Yeah. Well, it's like, I don't know if this is like probably a heavy-handed claim. It probably is, so I'll just say it. But I feel like a lot of people aren't even thinking about just the global influence that these media companies are able to have by making decisions like this. Like, it's not just Boris Johnson making a decision that impacts Britain. It's like, this is going to completely impact world history. And if you think about these large-scale changes that could have potentially occurred during World War I or World War II, I think that the world would not be the same today had they had the social media that they do now, because this is it's just I don't like big government, but it just is scary to me that a media company can make these kind of gravity level decisions.
Yeah, and the conservative take on that's good. The conservative take on that does not need to be an immediate knee-jerk, oh, big government is bad, so they should not mess with any of this.
Yeah.
That's not really the conservative position. It's kind of a libertarian position. The conservative position on this should be slow, thoughtful, and is this thing dangerous enough that government needs to intervene on behalf of all of us to rein it in?
Yeah.
And then if we decide yes, we
Yeah.
need to use the lightest possible touch.
Yeah, which is so funny because it's like the exact opposite of what the left does, which when they get power, just ram it through, ram it through,
That's
ram
it.
it through, you know?
Yep.
And so it's like, oh, I really am hopeful that conservatives would do that. But, you know, usually when we get power, we just go, oh, we got power. Okay.
Yeah, well, Republicans are amazing
take a
at
break.
that.
Yeah.
The
so it's
Republicans
just
are
like,
amazing
Yeah, the
at
Republican
that.
Party overall, which kind of sucks for us.
Well, yeah, it does. It does. And that's why I think that's why people are frustrated with the two-party system and why Trump was so successful and why the populist movement itself is starting. Anyway.
You know who's not successful?
Who would that be, Grant?
Joe Biden.
Joe Biden. Joe Biden gave a speech, didn't he?
He did. He gave a speech.
He gave a bumble.
And oh my
Good.
goodness, it was bad. It was a bad speech. That's all I have to say about it. He was talking to the House Democrats who are on a retreat.
Oh, is this the
Yeah,
retreat
this
where
is
they
the
were going to
retreat.
have the is this
Yes,
the,
they
where
were
they're going
gonna-
to have the
yeah.
drag queen?
Yes, this is
Yes!
where they're gonna have the drag queen.
I believe the drag queen may have gotten canceled because the retreat was postponed because they had to stay back and debate the omnibus bill, which
Just
they
as
thought
well,
was going to go through.
Children's libraries need drag queens now like never before. I'm sure the drag queen was able to find a job
Yes, certainly.
assaulting the morality of Americans' children. So, Grant, do we happen to have video?
I think we
of these
do have
gaffes?
video. There's, I believe, 3 separate gaffes that we're going to show video of here, and then maybe we can kind of break down each of them.
Awesome. Let's roll.
Public saying it's Biden's gas pipeline. Biden said he's going to stop the Keystone pipeline, and I did. And that's the reason prices went up. Folks, let's get something straight here. The Keystone pipeline was 2 years away and had been 2% finished. Give me a break. Give me a break. This law is going to put an end to all of that. It's going to put people in a much different position to be able to determine their own judgments about when to sell their cattle, when they should. We're going to change things. Why is it closed? Because for the last 2 weeks, because the moment it opens, it will be disbanded. You hear me? It will blow up.
It will blow up.
All of them are great. They're so
Yeah.
great. The first one, to me, gets me riled up because it's just more of this whole argument that Biden is not to blame for gas prices rising, and it's just so untrue on so many levels. I mean, it's very frustrating.
Well, yeah, and who delayed, by the way? He says it was 2 years away. Well, first off, we're now 14 months into his presidency.
Yeah, so we would be pretty close. At
We'd
this
be
point.
pretty close. And who delayed it before then? It was the left. The left dragged their feet and delayed and delayed and
Yeah,
delayed
it's
and
actually
delayed.
Greta Thunberg, I say.
So it's the infamous Greta Thunberg. So I mean that's ridiculous just on its face because the left is clearly responsible for that. It's also like when he says that, I read that as his acknowledging, hey, actually if it had gone through, gas prices would have been cheaper. Otherwise, why say, hey, it was still 2 years away?
I feel like
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
honestly they're grasping at any straw they can possibly think of to try to make it seem as if Joe Biden is not responsible for these gas prices. I don't even think they're thinking about the implications of their words. I think they're like, oh, well, the first thing we're going to go with is that it's Putin's fault. And then people were like, well, prices were actually going up significantly before Putin invaded Russia. And then they're like, oh, we got to come up with a new excuse. Then they're like, oh, actually, it's because the oil companies aren't drilling. And then the oil companies were like, you're lying about us.
We're
and how the
drilling as
process
fast
works."
as we can. In fact, we're opening
Yeah.
new wells.
No, they call that time for another misleading graph from the White House.
Yeah, they just whatever they can come up with. They just make a graph. They change their arguments, whatever they can do. And I don't even think that they are thinking about, wow, this argument that we make is now kind of undermining this other argument that we previously made. They're just going from point to point, trying to find something that sticks.
Michael and I were talking about that yesterday. Michael Austin, our supervising reporter, we were talking about a report CNN did on it's kind of a quasi fact check on why gas prices are rising, and the entire point of it was that it's not Joe Biden's fault. But it's absolutely it's gas prices. What they like to say is that gas prices were artificially depressed because of COVID, and that's true. But if you go back to when you go back to just a couple months before COVID, the average gas price in the U.S. was $2.36. So that's still way cheaper than it is right now. And that was before COVID slowed everything down. So we had a searing hot economy. I mean, burning up economy, no unemployment to speak of. And gas was $2.36 a gallon. So this is clearly incorrect. Additionally, you did have Trump kind of putting the squeeze on China, which would have reduced demand for petrol, which would have kept prices down. And Trump kept Putin in check, and it's the instability in the world right now that's driving oil prices up. So it is Putin. It is, well, it's Putin's fault too, but it is Biden's fault.
That's the thing that gets me is like whatever avenue they try to go down to make an excuse for Joe Biden, it all ties back to Joe Biden eventually. You can say, oh, it's Putin's fault. Okay, well, Joe Biden's inability to, present a strong American image is part of the reason why Putin said, I'm going to go do whatever I want.
It's this Joe Biden Gordian knot.
Yeah.
It can't be.
It's all
it cannot
Joe
be untangled. And so gas is one issue. Another issue for homes today is food prices. And I really think the flexibility to sell your cattle whenever you would like, I really think that's going to help us with food prices. And that seems to be what Joe Biden was supporting. Right, Tara?
Yeah. I don't even know. I don't even know what he was talking in reference to.
I do not either.
I went back on like C-SPAN and tried to find the whole thing to see what maybe he was talking about. And right before that, he was talking about how they have invested $65 billion into getting high-speed internet to everyone so that children can complete their homework and they don't have to go to the McDonald's parking lot. He literally said they don't have to go to the McDonald's parking lot. And then right after that, he started talking about cattle. It makes no sense. There's no transition or anything. It's nothing.
When to sell cattle and change things, according to Joe Biden.
Well, and the thing that I was thinking about too when these videos came out is, first of all, I feel like the American people are just going to be absolutely frustrated at this point, because if we think about Joe Biden's biggest blunders, I'd say number one is COVID, because what he campaigned on was that,
he would stop the virus.
Stop it.
And then, stop it.
To the best of my belief, last time I saw, more people died under Biden than Trump, which he said Trump was personally responsible for. So it's funny how that immediately shifts after that. Then you had the Afghanistan nightmare, and everyone watched that happen. And then we move forward with this Russia-Ukraine craziness, and now people are feeling their gas prices and all these things, and so I just think it's literally disaster after disaster hitting the American people. And I was, when we pulled up that video and Joe Biden's clutching the stand, that stance, that looking down, that's the exact same way that Kamala Harris has been in the media these past few days, just being super condescending, literally looking down to the American people, talking to us like we're four. And then Joe Biden does the exact same thing, grabs his podium and looks down. It's that's what it seems to look like to me, consistently, is Biden somehow secretly knows something that we all don't, and Kamala Harris does, and Russia's a larger country going into a smaller country, and it's look at your optics, look at what you're doing, because it's kind of funny just even watching that clip. I say this a lot of times on the show. It's, where's their PR team? Because I think back, if I were in high school and I were on my speech team, my speech coach would have been like, what are you doing grabbing the podium like that and staring at the carpet? She would have smacked me upside the head. And that's the sitting president of the United States talking like that. Yeah. What does that do for optics? And then you have the French president crying after a phone call with Putin. And these are supposed to be leaders of supposedly free nations. It's just bad.
The secret he knows that no one else knows, Tara, is it will blow up.
Yeah, it'll blow up.
I don't even know what.
He was trying to talk about the Russian stock markets and how his sanctions that he's put on them will completely just blow them up, and they're in such bad shape because of all the action he's taken against them. I believe was
they
his
are
point.
hurting them, but it doesn't seem to be dissuading old Vlad. I at the end, I think of every one of these, I say what happens next will be very interesting, but it really will. It'll be interesting to see how much of this Russia will tolerate. Okay, well, hey, that's it for us. Thank you for joining us on this Friday afternoon. We are grateful that you spent your time with us instead of blowing things up or selling your cattle. Remember, we are here every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific. If you're watching online, be sure to click the subscribe button. After that, little image of a bell will come up. You can click that, and that'll make sure you get notified when we go live. Additionally, I've mentioned this last few times I've been on the show. Facebook is throttling us very badly right now. That is very dangerous for us because we're a small family-owned company. We're not billionaires. We're not backed by billionaires. The way we make it is through ad revenue, and when Facebook destroys your traffic, that destroys your ad revenue. So if you would like to partner with us and help us help fund what we do directly, we would be eternally grateful. But we only want you to do it if you feel led to. If you do feel led to, you can go to westernjournal.com/join. That's westernjournal.com/join. All right, that is it for us, for Grant, for Tara, for the last time. We will miss you greatly. I'm Josh Manning. This is WJ Live, and we will see you next week. Have a great weekend.